oh snap, the end of all things, plus Avengers makes all the money ever. That and more on today's episode of The Real Review. So stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. Everybody, I am here with Joel, has seen the movie Avengers Endgame 76 times. Cunningham.
Close. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I've pretty much been doing nothing but watching it nonstop since it came out. I haven't gotten any sleep.
You leave the theater and go right back in again.
Exactly, yeah. I just buy them all online.
Yeah, I think there's a support group now.
Yeah, the first time I've ever seen this, actually, this might have happened to you, never happened to me before, but when we were trying to buy tickets for our second view, I've actually seen it 3 times.
What?
I should clarify. Yeah.
I've only seen it once. Dang.
Oh, man.
Okay.
A second time, we actually had to wait in line on the app. We were going through the Fandango app to purchase tickets.
Weird.
Yeah, and it like literally was like, you are, next in line to purchase tickets. Please
Hence,
hold.
one of the reasons why it's made all of the money.
Yeah, pretty much. Everybody's just like, shut up and take my money right now.
Exactly.
So I'm here with Matt. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity.
Oh, dang.
I thought that was pretty clever.
That was good.
Yeah, thank you.
Snap back to reality. Okay. That's
Yeah,
good
I'm
stuff.
not actually going to wrap it because then people would just
Mom spaghetti.
not even make it into the actual review part. They would just turn it off right there.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. This is The Real Review.
Yeah.
Give you a real quick, bring you up to speed if this is the first time listening to us. We are
two dudes.
two dudes. we're lovers of film and of cinema and entertainment and those types of things. And Joel, when he's reviewing something, can be a little bit potentially negative, analytical, critical, hypercritical. Sometimes it just depends.
Yeah. See, I see it as
but he
thorough.
finds, thorough, sure. Finds a lot of details, though. He has a good eye for like details and things in cinema and different things, the way things are filmed, shot, those types of things.
Yeah.
I tend to go in more like, hey, did I enjoy it? Did I feel emotionally invested? Was I emotionally a mess after the fact? Did I have a good time? Those kinds of things. I can be I tend to be a pretty positive person.
Yeah.
But so we kind of take those two aspects, blend them together, and that's what we do. We give the real review between our two perspectives.
There it is.
And we don't know everything, so we're learning, we're enjoying things, and you're along for the ride with us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Joel, why don't you let everybody know how they can get connected with us on The Real Review?
Will do. We have our website, which is realreviewmedia.com, where we pretty much post all of our content onto there. Additionally, we have Facebook, which is facebook.com/realreviewmedia, where we're always posting a lot of content and news stories that's coming out in the world of film and cinema. We just posted one trailer that looks like...
It looks amazing. It's called Sonic the Hedgehog. It looks like the best movie I've ever seen. I don't know why.
Pretty much guaranteed that this movie... Endgame was going to make all the money in the world, but then I saw that trailer and I was
that's going to make all the money in the world.
It's going to make all the money. Everybody just stop buying tickets and save it for Sonic the Hedgehog.
Guys, that trailer
movie.
is atrocious if you've ever seen it.
Even the character design. I'm like, that doesn't even look like a Sonic. That looks like a weird half hedgehog thing.
Rabbit.
Yeah, I don't even know. Anyway.
Oh, sweet rabbit.
Yeah. So join us on there. Leave us a comment and have fun. We're a lot of people commenting back and forth and having fun on there. So get connected with us as well on Instagram and Twitter, which are both at Real Review Media. And then additionally, we have our YouTube, which is youtube.com/The Real Review, where Matt's posting some different videos and stuff, some trailer reactions. And then we'll have our episodes going back up at some point.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then last but not least, we'd love to hear from you, our listeners, your thoughts and perspectives and input. Send us an email, realreviewmedia@gmail.com. Like I said, love to hear from you.
Definitely. And real quick, a couple of things. First, in this review we're going to do, obviously, we're going to talk about Avengers Endgame. We're going to kind of be talking generally up front because there's a lot of things we can't really talk about that spoils a plot.
So many things.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have a spoiler. We're going to give you like a spoiler warning, and then about, a few minutes into the review, we'll kick into that.
At this point, it's people probably listening are the ones that haven't seen it that want to see it.
Right.
That would have it spoiled. Because I feel like anybody listening to this that hasn't seen Endgame and wants to listen to a review
The
on
box office
would be like-
suggests
I'd be like,
that
"What?"
everybody has seen Endgame.
Yeah. Well, I would just be like, why would you listen to a review on a movie that's literally 10 years in the making?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe you're interested. You don't actually want to see the movie. You're just
Regardless, other
interested.
thing. Shout out to Tim Munsell. He was our contest winner.
Ayo.
We actually got
Yep.
to take him with us to go see Avengers Endgame.
He was.
The Friday it came out. It was awesome.
Had a great
and
time.
It was good. It was good times. We ate all the popcorn, and just like Avengers ate all the money.
We did. We
Yes.
had a good kumbaya session as well afterwards, talking about
Yes.
films and.
And
cinema.
I got picked on because I think the new Star Wars trailer is sweet.
That's
and-
a little
and they didn't like it.
heavy-handed. I don't think we. I guess I did. I did throw you under the bus a few
Yeah,
times.
it's okay.
There. Yeah.
It's okay. I'm getting used to
But-
under the bus. So it's
You're
all
getting
good.
used to. Wow. I don't feel like I throw you that under the bus that often.
I'm kidding. Okay, let's launch into this things, guys. Let's talk about Avengers Endgame because this movie is so highly anticipated, and if the box office isn't any indication, I think the reviews, the critic reception, fan reception is as well. Rotten Tomatoes, it's 95%. This is the second highest rated Marvel film ever out of the 22 movies.
And yes, if you did not hear, box office bringing over the weekend, everything record set. Pretty much, it's over $1.2 billion already.
Right.
Which is
So
just insanity.
So the only like main records that are left for it to demolish are the overall box
Gross,
office.
yeah.
So
highest grossing.
yeah. So once this thing does its whole theatrical run, and right now that sits with Avatar, it's pretty close to 3 billion. So that's kind of a hard
It is.
pill to swallow. But we'll see what happens. I don't understand the Avatar thing.
I think honestly, foreign cinema.
Yeah.
I know I saw it twice, once normal and then in 3D, but I think that was a common thing. People were seeing it in regular and then 3D, and then I think also in foreign cinema.
Also, so this is also tracking to potentially beat the domestic lifetime box office record, which is held by The Force Awakens, which made like $930 million or something like that. So we'll see what happens. I am rooting for this to beat Avatar.
Me too.
Yes. Because I don't get Avatar. So,
Well, wait until Avatar 2.
and 3
Then you'll
and
get it.
4 and 5.
And Infinity. Yeah, it was funny because Fox got purchased by Disney, and they've started shuttering certain projects, and they were listing a bunch of the projects that they were shut. I'm sorry, this is a little bunny trail, but it was just interesting to me. And they were listing them all out, and I'm like, I bet I'm not going to see Avatar on that list. And it was like, sure enough, that's still under production.
Yep.
So
Still doing its thing.
Disney knows what they're doing as far as money-making franchises.
They don't need help.
Nope.
Yep. Okay, so let's dive into this. Avengers Endgame, directed by Anthony Joe Russo, written by Christopher Marcus, Stephen McFeely, among some others. But the synopsis is, after the devastating events of Avengers Infinity War, the universe is in ruins. And with the help of the remaining allies, the Avengers assemble once more in order to undo Thanos' actions and restore order to the universe. Infinity War was one of my... it was actually my second highest rated movie of last year.
Right, in my top.
Yeah. So
which was battling it out, but yeah.
We loved Infinity War. I
Absolutely.
think that's safe to say. And I really liked Endgame. I'll give you straight off the bat. I feel like I don't need to run through the cast because it's massive and we all know the cast.
Yeah.
But Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, John Cheadle, Paul Rudd. But anyway, so I could go on for days with that.
Did you say Scarlett Johansson?
Yes, exactly.
And Chris Hemsworth?
Anyways, I really enjoyed this, not as a sequel to Infinity War, but also a sequel to all the other movies that came before it.
Yeah.
Surprisingly how somber this movie can be at points, how dark this movie can be at points. And one thing that I thought was amazing, obviously the action was amazing, but it was so funny. I was laughing so many times, Joel. Yeah. Like this movie had so many things going for it. It's kind of in a way that like Infinity War was like really funny, but also had like super heavy moments as well.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I mean, overall thoughts for you?
Overall, I enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to say this because I don't want to spoil certain aspects.
Right, we can talk generally, and then we can launch
generally.
into spoilers
this movie has a much more somber tone to it, and there was numerous moments where it was so heavy-handed that needed a little bit of a break of tension, and the humor would play in on those moments very nicely.
Yeah.
So it was like you still could kind of relax a little bit and let the tension kind of be released. That's one of the things that I think the Russo brothers did really well with this film and the last one. I think this one, it wasn't as funny to me as the first one because, again, that tone, that somber tone of this one really just struck a chord like kind of all the way throughout the film and left me feeling less like joyful throughout, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you
sure.
know? And not to say that there wasn't heavy-handed things going on in the last movie, Infinity War, there was, but it's kind of grander without spoiling things in this one for me.
This one's also 3 hours long, which is intense.
Yeah, well, I mean, even this film, and not to, again, go into too much detail, but it's kind of like a couple movies put together into one, and there's really a story of recovery from the first film in a huge chunk of this film. And so that's very somber and serious, whereas the last one hits you like a train. It's just like, boom, we're going and we're running with it, and there's like line after line after line, and funny, quirky sayings coming, especially from the Guardians of the Galaxy cast, which in the last one were so big, whereas this one, you know, less significant role.
For
due
sure.
to necessities.
For sure.
So overall, though, I think I got some really positive aspects from it, and you know, I can get emotional in films, believe it or not.
You can?
I know, but Matt doesn't believe it.
Oh my gosh,
you know?
Joel.
And I think just like the connection that I had to the story and these characters and the 10 years of it and having kind of gone through so much was so emotional for me. I didn't cry, but I definitely left feeling very heavy and impacted, you know, and that's not common. That's not something that you're going to get from cinema very often these days in general, but especially from like what I would never have thought it would be, which is like superhero films, you know, sequels.
Overall, I love the way they ended this thing. I feel like they did a proper ending. I almost said something that would have been bad.
There was.
I feel like they gave it a proper ending for a lot of its characters and just kind of this arc that started back in 2008. At the beginning, it does have like this somber down tone, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily slow, but I think there's a necessary like quietness to the first little bit of the movie that has to be there in order for you to build up to what eventually happens at the end. And I actually liked that a lot.
I would agree with that. I've again seen this movie 3 times.
Yeah, that's true. I want to see it again.
It's good to see it. I think the second time was especially rewarding. Knowing what was coming, you could really just be there for like connecting with the emotional moments.
That was my thing. I felt so like anxious almost before the movie started and during the movie. Like going in again, I feel like I could, you know, set that aside and just, you know, accept it for what it is, as opposed to like being like, what's going to happen? You know?
I think where this movie wasn't maybe necessarily as good as the last one was that first chunk of the film that we're talking about. After sort of the second time seeing it, I'm kind of like, okay, I don't really need to go through that again. Not that it's like bad per se, but it's kind of just moving into things more slowly, more methodically. I don't know the best way of putting it without spoiling things, but it just takes a very gradual pace. And I know it's setting things up for later in the movie, but again, after having seen it 3 times, I feel like almost I could just hop in halfway through the movie now and really get in to the parts that would be the most interesting to me. But I'm not saying the first part of it is bad. I'm just saying, again, the last movie, Infinity War, every single aspect of it tied so perfectly. It was just like, again, like a train. It was just like boom, 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 hitting all this stuff. Whereas this one is like, there's just these really slow-paced moments of building tension and building drama and characters just being in it and thinking, and it was just heavy, you know? So, but there's a lot of other good things that I could say about the film as well. I think, once again, the special effects just blew it. I mean, they just did an amazing job. There wasn't one scene in this that I was just like, everything of it.
Marvel's like especially this one. I feel like anytime the Russos are involved, they have a good distinct eye and they know how they want to, you know, have their graphic artists go in there and do things specifically.
Absolutely. The de-aging, once again, was super good. As well as with this one, the shot selection wasn't as strong to me as Infinity War was. There was some really, really impactful moments and ways of shooting things in Infinity War to me that just really left me, I don't know, feeling the feels. This one, it wasn't as much as cinematography as much as it was just what was occurring on screen. So I think, again, not that they did a bad job, but just not quite as high a level for me. Anyway, what some of your thoughts? I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, no. I think I can echo your sentiment. I think I like Infinity War just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. It's I really like it, but it doesn't negate anything that I enjoyed from this movie.
Yeah.
You could almost look at it as like a huge 5-act movie, that's 5.5 hours long.
That's funny you say that. I mean, part of me rebelled when I first started thinking that.
Right.
Because it was kind of like, how can these two movies are so closely connected. How can I look at one and say I like it a little bit more than the other? But they are really, although the story is so closely related, they are two very distinctly different films in tone and pacing and purpose.
Endgame, Endgame really subverted and upended some of what I was expecting to happen.
Yeah.
Especially like from the get-go. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny how I was expecting one thing and I got another thing. And I feel like that happened like 3 or 4 times in the movie.
Yeah.
It was great though, in a great way. I wasn't like upset about it.
Yeah, it was subversion of expectations, but in a good way.
Yeah.
It left me feeling like I was expecting this, but I got that, but I like that better.
Yeah.
And it fits. It's clever, and they made use of it well. I think one of the other things I was gonna say that I really liked about it was the music. This film, more so than the last film, even the music just really fit at certain times, and just that sort of Avengers theme.
And I think it was the same composer though, Alan Silvestri.
Okay, yeah. I think more of it was the usage of the soundtrack, and because there was so many more moments where it was like just the music going and like nothing else on screen, I heard it a lot more, and it had more of a tone and a feel to it.
Yeah.
So I think they did a much better job. Not much better, but like a step up even from the last film on the soundtrack. I mean, Marvel's never been huge on that. Like they've always had one or two like of their like ongoing themes. Yeah. But they've never really blown it out of the water with that. But this one they like took a step up.
So with this one, we can talk about negatives. And I can't get into specifics, but there's not really a lot of negatives. There's just something with a character that I just didn't prefer the direction that they took it. Yeah. And it was fine to begin with, but then when I realized that it wasn't changing, I was like, okay, I don't know if I like that. And I'm still on the fence about it. Maybe after a second viewing, I'll feel different. I can foresee there being another issue with something that happens kind of in the second act of the movie that could be problematic for some people who are really like perceptive or nitpicky on things. Yeah. But I did some more research into that, and we can talk about that when we get to spoilers. And I think I have a theory as to what specifically is happening. Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about, and I did some research as well, so I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. And perspectives here on The Real Review.
100%. Yeah. Was there anything else that kind of stuck negatively?
I think for me, the two biggest negatives, the biggest by far was the story structure. Okay. It really, there was just some things. I mean, I can't read them, but I sat down and I just had so many questions in my head. I just opened up like a notepad on my phone, and I literally wrote like 10 questions of like unanswered things that don't really have an answer. Yeah. And some of them I looked up, later to figure things out and I will spoil this. It's not too big a spoiler, but the film involves time manipulation. And whenever you bring that into a film, it tends to muddy the waters of what's possible and what can happen and how it can happen. Right. And that really played a significant role in this film of me. But in addition to that, outside of just the time travel stuff, there was many questions of just character choices and reactions and ways of acting, not explaining things or over explaining that just, I'm like, huh? Yeah. So we can talk about some of the specifics in the spoiler talk. And then lastly, I would say some of the dialogue was a couple times just felt a little too silly. There was moments where it was like beautiful and perfect, and then there was a couple times where I'm like, I feel like you could approach that a little bit better, a little bit differently. That's more me, I think, personally. It just, there was a couple times with something, and I could say what and how, But again, we're not talking spoilers. But that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Well, let's do that. Do you want to rate it first, or do you want to do spoiler talk first?
I think we give a spoiler talk first.
Okay, let's do. So we're gonna dive into our spoiler.
So we'll put in the episode description the time code.
Yeah.
For the spoiler talk, and then we'll give our review at the end of that.
Right. So if you are listening to this, you have not seen the movie, go ahead and shut it off, and then come back later on after you've had a chance to see the movie. We are gonna dive heavy into spoilers here in a little bit. And I'll give you a 5-second countdown, and here we go. Spoilers, here they come. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And Thanos dies. And Ant-Man doesn't. And
Ant-Man
the Hulk doesn't. But Black Widow.
But who's the main guy? Who's the main guy who dies?
Iron Man.
Oh,
he bites it. Oh, it's such a painful
It was
scene.
a very poetic moment, though.
Yeah, I will say.
Very poetic.
We'll just hop right into it. Out of all the moments of just like deep, like, ooh, kind of throughout all these films, that is definitely the most heavy.
Yeah.
And is going to probably remain in my mind. I mean, I was just talking to a few people about Iron Man's character and who he is and just what he's brought to that role is so timeless and so, in a way, perfect. Like, he just fit that role so perfectly. And he started the Marvel universe in many ways, you know. I mean, he brought us into with the first Iron Man being so successful.
Which why this whole it's like this giant circle of life thing that started back in 2008 that is resolving with this a little
exactly.
bit. And it's crazy.
And so it was so sad, and I think what also made his role in this film so particularly sad was the fact that it was an undesired sacrifice. It's not that he wouldn't have done it, obviously he did, but the whole entire movie, he's saying, I just want to be with my family. I just want to be with my family. I don't want to lose that. Yeah. And then he still ends up having to make that sacrifice. And so it's just so touching.
Yeah, for sure.
And it really took me up. And every time I've seen it, 3 times now, that has still left such a big impact on me. And will continue to because it's sad. Yeah. It's sad that he's no longer going to be in that role.
It's funny how so many people are predicting it, but we're still kind of like, oh man, I can't believe that actually just happened.
Yeah.
We were expecting it, but it still hit us,
Absolutely.
I think so. This is what I was alluding to earlier. What's funny is in the first 15 or 20 minutes of the movie, they actually go and they kill Thanos.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I was sitting next to you and I'm like, what?
Yeah, movie over?
Like where do we go? What do we do now?
Well, I love it because they really do set up, and this is where they did it well. They set up your expectations in one way so they can really get you to a place emotionally where you're like, wow, they've fallen off the edge here.
Yeah.
There's no coming. This is like the depths.
Yeah.
They did that in such an effective way. I mean, they played the music and they showed the logo and here they are. They're going to go fight him and they got Captain Marvel now and they're going to go kill him and they're all pissed off. And then they go down there and then he's weak and they just kill him. And you're like, what is going on? Yeah.
It wasn't even elongated. They went in there, his arm gets chopped off.
Immediately.
Thor says a few words and then chops off his head.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Yeah. Let's bringing up Thor real briefly.
Okay, that's one of my favorite parts of the whole movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so funny. I was giggling the whole movie. If you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, because you have or have not seen it, I don't know why you're here if you haven't seen it. But Thor is basically chubby fat Thor.
Yeah. He's Thor Lebowski.
Yes,
Lebowski,
it's so funny.
It's so amazing.
And we learned that Korg and Meek are alive.
Oh, yeah. And I knew that was going to love you. You were going to love that.
Because I love Korg. He's one of my favorites in Ragnarok.
Yeah. I will say the 2 times I first saw it, the theater was primarily, a mixture of older and younger audiences. Yeah. Every time they have that scene and Fortnite comes on, inevitably there's 3 or 4 kids in the audience that are just like, Fortnite! I'm like, really, kid? Yeah. There's so many other crazy things going on and you're like, Fortnite right now? Anyway.
I know. It's just... Yeah, so that was just a delight and what's great about it too, and I love that they stuck with that choice because it doesn't change throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, they really committed to it, and it becomes less significant.
Right.
It's significant, but once he takes on the role of Thor and fighting, he's still fat. But it's not like
let's talk about that too, and the possibilities, which really because at the end he's hanging out with the Guardians. He calls himself the Asgardians of the galaxy.
Yeah, I will say I'm not as happy about that. Specifically, I'm fine with him going off with the Guardians and being part of that universe. I'm specifically not happy with the choice that they made to basically have him just give up the throne. Not because I felt like the person he gave it to was in any way unworthy, that she couldn't do it, but because we've literally spent 3 films with him now trying to prove his worthiness. of taking that role on.
Sure.
And it was so offhandedly like, well, I want to find my own way, so you just take over as the queen or the king or whatever. That I really did not enjoy that too much.
Oh,
it almost
I thought
felt
it was
like,
fine.
well, Asgard's basically destroyed anyway, so peace out. I'm just going to go do my own thing. I mean, I spent so much time. I mean, the first film in particular was so much about him just proving his worthiness to be the person in charge. So it felt like a huge step back. I'm not gonna lie, for his character. Yeah, but I am excited to see his adventures.
I felt like it was a step forward. He's moved beyond like, you know, I don't need to prove my worthiness, you know.
Right. He didn't need to prove his worthiness, but he still has like certain things that have been certain roles that he's like defined by his roles or something, but basically like he raised himself as this person to be this person. So it kind of negates this. Now you go back and look at those films and you can just basically say, well, you're not going to be king anyway. So why does this even matter? That's kind of my point. I get your point too, which is that his character didn't move somewhere.
Right.
It shows progress. I just think that the progress was it did a disservice. I felt I would have been fine with him basically saying like, look, you run things for now. I need to go find myself and figure out what I'm doing with my life because I thought I was ready for this, but I'm totally not. But instead he's just like, I'm just not king anymore. You take it, which was very unwarranted to me.
Sure. Let's jump into another character, and this is one of my negatives, and I don't necessarily like it. I know a lot of people that did like it, but I don't understand why fully. And I think there's a translation between people who liked it, or a correlation between people who liked it and are fans of like the comic books.
Hulk.
Right, the Hulk. So he's found out a way to merge the Hulk body with the Bruce Banner like consciousness.
Bruce Hulk, I guess. Yeah.
Right. And I guess it's called like a Professor Hulk, like that's a storyline in the comics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I did like the first scene with it. It was hilarious, and they're like in a diner. Ant-Man's there. It's so funny, and
that was pretty great. Yeah.
And but basically he's like that for the rest of the movie. You don't see Bruce Banner except in like projection form that when he meets up with Tilda Swinton's character, the ancient one, and that's it. Here's my thing though, is the one thing I loved about the Hulk was like he's just like a rage monster, and like when he's unleashed, like he just does some really gnarly things that are kind of cool to see. And there's always that tension of, you know, like of Bruce Banner and him, like, you know, back and forth kind of thing, which is great. And I'm glad he was able to like resolve some of that, but I miss the rage monster.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that they have kind of this like play with it later, like when they go back in time to talk about to 2012 Avengers.
Yeah.
And like he's like trying to rage out. He's like hitting a car. He's like,
that was pretty great. Chucks the motorcycle.
But other than that, I was like, I kind of miss like the rage Hulk, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because what you don't get is the Hulk personality.
Yeah.
You know, and that was a fun thing about Hulk. You know, Bruce's character was more of kind of like along for the ride.
Right.
And so sort of the undesired victim of the Hulk's antics. And I would have been more okay with it if you still had moments where I think Hulk's personality more came to the forefront.
Right.
You know, like the body thing, I get that like maybe he just wants to stay in that form because it's simpler for him. He probably doesn't have to pay for as many clothes and stuff like that. But like, give me moments where he still just gets like really angry and that he just lashes out in some sort of thing. I get it that, like you said, it's a comic book thing and it's there, but just because it was in the comic book doesn't necessarily mean it translates as perfectly on screen as it needs to.
So
I'm in agreement.
Okay, cool.
What you're saying.
Other thing, time travel. Let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, that was a big one that I wanted to talk about.
Right. So, and they say as much in the movie. I mean, they talk about how like your preconceived notions of what time travel is and the rules of time travel aren't actually real. They talk about it in all the movies and all this stuff. They even reference all that stuff. Hot tub time machine. So, the research that I did into this aspect of the film is it's not straight up time travel, and it is not going to be like what we know time travel to be. It's actually more like interdimensional travel.
Yeah.
And that allows a little bit more explanation, but then at the same time opens up some more like questions with it as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's a cool way to approach it, because it does like alleviate, well, if that happened to this, how come now that's not a problem here? Like it could have been, you know, it's out of the infinite amount of time streams or timelines that there are.
Yeah.
It wasn't the exact same one that they're in right now.
The basis of what I read, and I think it's similar to what you're reading, is that they're unable to change their past through going into the past,
right?
Which would impact their present. So because they can't, because there's just some reasons for it, because their past would become their future and it would just always be there, and it creates a loop, which I get that.
Right.
The thing that really didn't make sense is, though, what change occurs and what happens when they do things with the past and how they're able to manipulate things. And specifically, that comes into play at the very, very end with Captain Marvel and how he's able to be there.
How Captain Marvel is able to be there.
Or not Captain Marvel, sorry. Captain America.
Okay.
Big difference.
Yeah.
How Captain America was able to be there as an older person within that timeline.
Right. That's the only I don't fully understand that one.
The only way that I could have thought about it was that there's an idea that the film is talking about divergent timelines, and anything that you do in the older past,
it creates a branch
timeline. And Captain America went back into those branch timelines, put the stones back, which that in and of itself is weird to me.
Yeah.
And doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, specifically with Jane, like, that was in an ether form and inside of her body. So, like, did he put it back in ether form and then stab her again? Like, they didn't explain that.
Well, they had it. It was like a physical thing when they got it. When they got it from Asgard.
When they got it from Asgard, but it was in stone form when he took it back.
Yeah.
So did he do that? And then, so their role in that was to fix the divergent timelines. Yeah. But by all the things that they did, they would have created so many divergent timelines. And I'm assuming that what they're saying is that we're just going to pretend like those are all divergent things that don't make any difference. But anyway, he had the portal ability still, so he just stayed in that timeline because his mere presence there would have created a divergent timeline. And then when he got old enough, he just teleported himself right to that bench or something like that. But I don't know why he wouldn't have had to use the pad. There's so many questions of those sort of issues. Like I said, it doesn't really necessarily make sense how it does or it doesn't play out with some of the timing, and because the bigger questions start to become like, and these are things that I wrote down, like, well, they didn't have enough Pym particles. Well, why don't they do what they did with Captain America and Tony Stark and just go further into the past and get more Pym particles?
Right.
Like, they could have easily done that. Then they would have unlimited, time. And why do they care what happens to the divergent timelines in all these different places? I mean, they could just take the stones and then, just do something with them. You know what I mean? That doesn't matter all that much to me. There's a bunch of questions, but I don't know. The
one question I have, and this would be interesting and could be something like some really rich storytelling moving forward with the MCU and how it works, is the snap bringing everybody back. The sacrificial snap from Iron Man is when people are all brought back, all their families have moved on, potentially 5 years, or maybe they have new spouses.
Yeah.
Maybe they, have new jobs after maybe,
that in and of itself, we talked about that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That could be like very problematic. I feel like it needs to be addressed.
One other thing that kind of confused me that didn't make a lot of sense is the whole, like, if they're doing divergent timeline things, then how are they able to travel in between those? And if they took stones from different time periods, wouldn't that impact the other timelines in different ways, or does it create its own diversion? But like the whole idea of, so if half the world's population just disappeared, that would be chaotic.
Yeah.
People would die from, like planes would crash or something like that. Cars would crash. So there would be a lot of deaths. There would be a lot of crazy things going on. But the world would most likely recover.
Yeah.
Whereas if you suddenly doubled the Earth's population,
right,
after 5 years have gone by, where there's been, they've probably at this point adjusted.
There's going to be an economic crisis too.
Exactly. They've adjusted to this lifestyle with food production, with the necessities of like all these different like systems are now half of that population.
Right.
If you suddenly double that, I mean, there's going to be court cases about like, I'm dead and this person took my property and bank seized all my stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this as well. And this had so much confusion with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So Spider-Man was gone, but they applied at the end of the film that his friend did not disappear.
Right.
But his friend would have aged 5 years and would be out of school.
Why did they? I didn't get that they implied that he.
Well, like he sees them and he like smiles, like, "Oh my gosh, you're back!" And they like shake hands.
I saw that as like they had a realization. They know that they've been gone.
That would have to be it, because the thing is, Peter said that it felt like they were gone for like an instant.
Right.
Like, basically felt like they never left.
Right. But that was at that battle. I would imagine that there was some time passage between that battle and when he was going back to school.
Right. But we're gonna have to see in the next Spider-Man movie. Basically,
I'm very curious as to what that's going to happen.
Everybody in his class
is graduated.
Is either graduated or they're going to have to graduate some of them.
Right.
Or I don't know how you're going to handle that. I mean, or all of them died.
Right.
All of them were part of the half that got disintegrated. So it's like there's aspects to
just
that.
Peter Parker's class got dusted.
I mean, imagine, and this is like a weird example, but imagine you're like 14 years old and you're like, you have a quasi dating relationship with somebody and then they like die and then they come back and you're like, you're now 19. And it's like, how are you going to, I don't know, just weird stuff like that.
That is weird.
Have to
that
go
is
down.
weird. I don't know.
But I mean, there's so many, and I listed some of these things, but it's like, these are reasons why I'm rating the movie slightly lower.
Yeah.
Why didn't Captain Marvel just fly away with the gauntlet? Why did she have to run it all the way to the time machine? She had the ability to fly, and Thanos' ship had already been destroyed, so she could have just like flown it out into space, and then they wouldn't have been able to get it.
Right.
How did Nebula figure out how to teleport things through the time travel thing? And how was Thanos able to figure out not only the time travel side of things, but how to shrink his ship? Because that's what he did. And how did he have enough Pym particles? Did he create Pym particles? Did he like?
Wait, he shrank his ship?
Yeah, like if you watch, I've seen it 3 times.
Yeah.
So if you go, one of the other things I didn't notice is the rat was the thing that set off the thing to bring Ant-Man back. But if you watch the scene, Nebula accesses the time machine, and as she's accessing it, Thanos' ship goes through the portal, and it's actually growing larger as it comes through the portal. So he shrunk his ship down using shrinking technology and Pym particles in order to get it through the portal, and then he grows it large. Like if you watch the scene, it breaks through that little small section of the ceiling, and then it like expands back to full size. So sometime between,
I have to see it again.
Yeah, when she teleported back in time in that timeline, even though that's somehow not a divergent timeline, even though so many things have changed. So somehow he had to have figured that out at some place. Why didn't, as well for Nebula's character in particularly, why didn't she explain to everybody the aspects of the Soul Stone being necessary to do a sacrifice, and the fact that Thanos and everybody were going to be looking for that when they go back? I mean, they spent like days planning this thing out. You think Nebula would have said like, hey, by the way, this is required, and also this is what's going to go down when we're getting the Power Stone.
Right.
So that was just kind of silly to me. I don't understand why they didn't use the gauntlet to heal Tony when Tony died. Like, I guess they couldn't for some reason. There's a number of different things.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Sure.
But these are all reasons why it kind of started to break down. And then this one pissed me off. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I really like the film, but like the sacrifice that was made with Black Widow, which was such a sad thing to see her character go. And I wish they'd given her, not just Tony a tribute, but given her a little bit of a tribute at the end there when they did Tony's like send off. They're not really making a sacrifice for the stone. They're killing themselves, which that is Thanos had to kill his daughter.
Right.
He had to sacrifice something to get the stone. So killing yourself isn't, in my opinion, enough of a sacrifice to warrant the stone, because they were trying to stop each other from killing themselves. So they weren't really making a sacrifice. The other person was making a sacrifice of themselves. So that didn't really make sense.
Well, I think because they didn't really have anybody else. Like they didn't have like.
I know.
Yeah.
But that again, that they changed the rules of that, because it was very clear in the first film that like you have to make an unwanted sacrifice. Like you have to get rid of a life that you cherish in order, and it wasn't even necessarily life, but it was the thing that you love the most. Yeah. You have to get rid of that in order to get the stone. Soul Stone. So I don't know how that worked, but this all kind of came together. Yeah. And what it ended up being was like these big moments of like emotional impact and sadness and like, wow, this is crazy, especially the battle and we should talk a little bit about the battle stuff too if we want.
Oh yeah.
I know we're going on a huge review here.
This
but
is a massive review.
Yeah. But I would have those moments, but then I'd have so many moments where I'm kind of left with questions like, well, why and how
Yeah.
and if and couldn't they? Just like so many different questions of different stuff. I mean, why didn't Captain Marvel, for that matter, even just put on the gauntlet? I mean, she's made of pure energy.
Right.
She could have probably just put on the gauntlet and
I don't
done
know
something.
the rules.
Yeah, I don't know the rules
Yeah.
for something like that. And they could have used the gauntlet to go through time to maybe not get the Black Widow that died after the Soul Stone sacrifice, but they could have got one from before. I mean, that they did that with what's her face, Gamora.
Yeah.
So if you can get Gamora from a different timeline before she was sacrificed, then couldn't you get Black Widow from a different time? So there's like things like that are just kind of like, well, I felt like it was more of a necessity. They had to get rid of Black Widow, and so they tried to manipulate it into the circumstance of, well, we're going to make her make the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah.
Last thing we can probably talk about, and then we'll wrap up, I guess, if you want, the fights, the big fight at the end, because there's pretty much just one major fight. Which took place at the end of the film between Thanos and everybody.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Which I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
Worth the wait. In a sense.
Yes. Captain America. Let's talk about that. Wielding Mjolnir.
Yeah.
So if that's how you say it.
Which that was one of the better lines of funny dialogue too when he swaps with.
Well, that was it was
Thor.
great. He's like,
no, you take the little.
Yeah, you take the little one. I like this one.
Yeah.
It was really good, but I love that. It was a cool little callback to Ultron. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And super awesome too. Just to see that visually and
the scene. I mean, where they're all just emerging and coming back was just so epic.
Yeah, and that
cool.
big scene, and you see Giant Ant-Man there, and just like everybody's there lined up, ready to take on Thanos' army. Super cool. And he punches one of those like worm ships out of the sky. That was super cool.
That was super cool, and that's one of the best moments of music as well in the film, where it just, Captain America's
Avengers
basically
assemble,
bloodied and bruised, and has been through so many films and so much garbage, and he stands up, and it's like, how's this one guy going to take on this entire army of Thanos? And it was just like, because of what they've done, and he gets his own army, and just that charge, and everybody just starts killing each other and beating the crud out of each other. I mean, it was so rewarding, and I think Tony Stark's last line, in a sense, as being a living Tony Stark, was fitting. I mean, that symbolized his character. I am Iron Man.
It was so good. It was good. I mean, it was a like full circle thing from his first movie, and I think that was just, I like that.
Yeah, very touching moment. I will say the second time you see it is at least, if not more, emotional.
I'm gonna see it again
because you see it coming.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, this is about to happen. And you're able to just like be invested into the emotions of the moment.
Yeah, totally.
Which was super dark. So, any other further thoughts? I mean, there's so many different things.
There's
in the movie.
It's a massive movie, and again, I think that's the thing. I think people are going to repeat watch it because it is a lot to digest, and I think I will catch some things probably the second go around that I haven't caught yet. Since I know you've seen it 3 times, you probably caught a little bit more. But I really, really liked that proper send off, and and it's not, and I like that they didn't do anything to like intentionally set up sequels. There's no post credits thing. You get an audio clip, which I've read to understand is just Iron Man when he was working on his original Iron Man suit in the caves.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's touching.
Yeah. It was kind of nice.
I mean, they give you that little send off in the credits too, where they kind of like give everybody their own special. Well, the main Avenger
title cards.
Title cards.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I will say one negative thing. We didn't talk about this as well, minorly. The little girl that was in it felt a little flat to me. There was definitely a couple moments I'm like, why are you not? I feel like you should be crying, a little bit sad.
Oh, Tony's daughter?
Yeah.
I think she was maybe just too young to fully understand what was going on. I love you 3000.
I get that. It just felt a little bit like,
Yeah.
I
gotcha.
That was touching.
Hey, what are you going to rate this thing?
So, I'm going to give this one, I've been battling slightly with myself about it, but I think
there's been an own civil war.
Yeah,
happening.
I think I'm going to give it an 87.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 93.
Okay, wow. All right. I talked about this with a few people, but the truth of the matter is, like, if you sat me down and you said, which film would you rather watch, Infinity War or this, it's going to be 100 times probably more often Infinity War.
Yeah, me too.
It's just a straightforward, more entertaining film. There's no complex, creative, crazy, like, plot things that are going on that just confuse me. I think this one had much more strong emotional moments.
Sure.
But the moments between that left me with more questions and answers a lot of times. And so, I don't know. I shouldn't have to necessarily with this kind of a film like have to do deep complex research into what time travel is about and how it works and if it fits, just to figure out if the plot actually works the way it does. And there's still numerous questions to the story. I think what it really boils down to is it felt more like they were manipulating circumstances to fit what had to happen with certain characters.
Sure.
Because I'm not going to spoil things now.
Yeah, no, I got you.
But like it feels like that was the case more so than in the first film. The first film, it felt like they were just going along for the ride. This one was like, well, we have to accomplish this, and this.
Yeah.
So we're going to make it go in that direction.
Right.
So I ranked it at 87.
Okay, cool. Well,
it'll be on my top 10. I'm guaranteeing, but it's not going to probably be my top one.
Sure. Yeah, no worries.
I'm saving that for Lion King.
I think this is I think it's my highest one for the year so far. 93 is not like, it's awesome, but it's, I think I had a 97 last year. So, if you guys, let's throw it back to you listeners. Let us know what you guys thought about the movie. Kind of if you're agreeing with and tracking with what we're talking about. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, what you thought about those like main moments. What were your favorite moments? Let us know. Feel free to email us. Let us know what's going on with that. We can chat with you.
Yeah.
Our email address is realreviewmedia@gmail.com. And then again, you can reach us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the social medias, all that stuff at Real Review Media, youtube.com/The Real Review as well, and just realreviewmedia.com.
Yeah.
And let us know. Let us know what's going on with that. If you're excited, if you think it's going to beat Avatar, which I'm really hoping it does. I'm pretty sure it's going to beat Titanic because I think it's Avatar than Titanic still. Yeah, but Titanic's still like just over $2 billion something dollars. It's not as close as, it's not as high as Avatar is. So anyways, so let us know what you think. Joel, you got anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I'm really excited to find out what they're going to do with the 5-year plan.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully Comic-Con, they'll kind of reveal some stuff to us.
They haven't officially said that this is where they're going to do it.
Yeah.
But that's where they did the last big announcement of the 3 phases. And they said they're going to do it right after Spider-Man Far From Home comes out.
Far From Home,
yeah. Which is the beginning of July, which is before Comic-Con. So that all indicators right now seem to say that that's probably because the big Marvel thing for Disney is going to be in June.
Yeah.
So that seems to be it.
I'm excited. Let's see what happens.
I'm excited to see it.
We'll see what happens. We can get some new Avengers stuff potentially down the road, so that should be exciting.
Yeah.
But other than that, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Cool. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. It's been real.
It's been real.